Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. For those of you who follow my channel already for quite a while, you might have wondered what happened and why I wasn't uploading any videos, and there is a quite easy explanation for it. Because what happened is that I was in Germany because I gave up my apartment in Düsseldorf, Germany, and moved my entire stuff over here. I have actually prepared some videos, but I was so busy that I just simply haven't found the time to edit those videos, and this is exactly what I'm gonna do now. I was just busy with like renovating my apartment, getting it rented, packing, moving here, unpacking, all those things. And I just had no time to even think about editing a video or doing a video. But coming back to the garden after 2.5 weeks, I was amazed. It looks crazy good, like everything bursted out in color with a lot of growth. Is beautiful. I think in my back you can already tell a little bit. I'm standing with you here at the back of a garden on the slope. The grasses, the Panacetum vertigo looks fantastic. In my back there are some cosmos, there are snapdragons, roses, there are the petunias in purple, so it is beautiful. But before I'm going to show you how that looks, I will just give all of the videos to you that I actually prepared. So they date back roughly 3 weeks from now. So don't be surprised if you feel like, oh, the garden doesn't really look up to how it should look for midsummer. Yeah, because those videos happened a while ago. And then I will continue with a lot of exciting garden projects and tours. So I hope that you are excited about all those things that are gonna come. Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden on another really beautiful warm summery day. The sun is out, clear blue skies, gorgeous gardening weather. I hope that you are equally lucky to enjoy some really wonderful days in your own garden as well. What I want to do in today's video is actually a little bit of a preparation for an upcoming video where I need some of my containers. And for those of you who follow my channel already for quite a while, you might remember that I was growing some tulips in containers and they looked fantastic. Well, you know what? Now I need those containers, and it's the perfect time to lift those tulip bulbs and store them. And this is exactly what I want to do in today's video, and just take the time to explain to you a little bit, like if you are growing tulips or if you're intrigued about growing tulips, where it is best, where tulips come from, and then really focus on the part on how to store your tulips. So hope you are excited about joining me in my garden today. I really love growing tulips in containers because what you can do is you can really pack them in there, and when they come to bloom you have this wonderful big display, almost like a flower bouquet in a container, and you can create the most wonderful pot gardens with these next to your main entrance or on your terrace. But what I sometimes like even a little more is when you're missing a pop of color in your borders, you can just very easily come in and take one of these containers and just bung it straight into the middle of your border, and there you go, there you have the color that you were missing. Speaking of missing, I did an entire video that just spun around like how to put tulips in containers. If you missed that one, I'm going to give you the link just down below here. I explained to you on how to mix, how to mix your own good soil, because tulips like to thrive in a certain soil condition. So when you're thinking about tulips, inevitably you're thinking about one country, the Netherlands. But tulips, they do not originate in the Netherlands. Tulips come from mountainous areas in Persia and Turkey. And that is a quite good indicator. Like if you think about those areas and how the climate is there, then you already have a good feeling on what kind of conditions tulips like to thrive in best. So the soil, that is definitely key. Those mountainous areas, they have very well drained soil. So tulips, they do not like to sit somewhere in heavy clay, or if you have a very dense, compact, wet soil like Baltic Garden, because what happens then, the tulip bulbs, they will start to rot, and obviously it's no good, because then you're not going to be rewarded with a single flower. What else is very important? You should be gardening somewhere in a climate where your winter is a winter with a cold spell, because tulips, they need to go through a period of very cold temperatures in order to produce blooms. If that doesn't happen, they will only produce leaves, but not a single bloom is going to appear most likely. What you can do though is you can just like manipulate that process. You just take your tulips, put them in the fridge for a certain amount of time, and then you can plant them out in the landscape or in your containers, and then they will come to bloom. Here I'm at the south coast of the Baltic Sea in the north of Poland. Soil here is very well drained and sandy, so that is ideal. I can put a lot of my tulips here in the open landscape, and obviously we have very cold winters here still. So growing tulips is definitely a winning situation. And if you follow me on Instagram, a lot of people always comment on like how surprised they are that I still have tulips in my garden. And I tell them like, well, I have tulips pretty much for an entire month here, because spring is very mild and spring is a very long season here before summer really arrives. So planting tulips in masses makes absolute sense for me. When those tulips are done with their flowering, what you should definitely do is you should come in and just nip off the seed head, so deadhead them, because you don't want that the bulb uses any energy in producing seed. You want to make sure that all the energy goes back into your bulb. What you shouldn't do is, though, do not cut back the leaves, because the leaves, they're gonna still produce a lot of energy, and all of that goes back into your bulb. And only when those leaves and the stem is completely brown and really just dried off, basically, then you can just come in and take it off. Most of the time what happens here, because I'm on top of a dike and the wind travels through the garden, the wind is just like gonna just take the leaves away anyways. But that is just like a rule of thumb, just when you think about like how tulips grow, what they like, what you should do with them. What I could do though here, because these tulips, they sit just in the perfect soil, so I could just leave them in here if I wouldn't need these containers. I could just store them somewhere in a well-protected south-facing area of the garden where they can just bask in the sun. This is what they would absolutely love and appreciate. If you want to try to leave your tulips in a container, do not put it somewhere behind the garden shed, like in the shadow, for example, because that is no good. They really want to have the heat that they normally have in these mountainous areas in Persia and Turkey. What I'm going to do though is I am going to take them out here, because I need these containers for a little planting project, and the plants that I want to put in here, they won't be so happy in such a well-drained sandy soil. So in theory, because the tulips bulbs, they sit somewhere down here, I could just plant something on top of here, but I know it wouldn't be so good. So I think it's better to just like really take them out and store them. So what I'm going to do now is take a container, tip it over and into a wheelbarrow, and just show you how the situation in here looks like. This is a container where I was only growing tulips, and so what you see are weeds, so basically they will go away. Then you see some dried off leaves, so this is exactly what you want to see, because then you know all the goodness went straight back into the bulb. Then here are still 2 tulips that still have some leaves, but still I'm going to take them out now, because they start to brown off, and I think it's just going to be a matter of time before they will be completely, can you see it? I think you can. There's just a little bit of green left, and almost a third of the leaf is already kind of just like really dry and here really yellow. So it is a good time of the year to do it now. So all I'm going to do now, very simple, is I just take this entire container and tip it over. Whoa, heavy. You can see a lot of roots, so they have rooted in fantastic. And when you see all these roots here, this is also a good explanation on why it is better to actually tip it over. There's a shard, even a crock, because it's better to try to like gently tease all of this now apart, and do not disturb too much of the root system if possible. Also, if you want to lift the tulips in your flower bed, it might be a quite good idea to come in with a garden fork and just lift them gently. And this is what you want to have. So I have still some roots attached. I have the soil here. I've got the tulip bulb. I can just nip this part off now. That is not needed anymore. And then you see this was the initial bulb, and then there is a new bulb on the side forming where the tulip is going to produce a new flower next year. So what I'm going to do now is I will just work my way through here gently and try to get all of my tulips out bit by bit. Oh look, there is one. There is a good example that definitely did not flower. And ooh, there is a slug inside. Wonderful. That is not what I want. That did not flower. There are no roots, and this is definitely what you don't want to store. It is even a little mushy, so that is not good. You really want to make sure now that you inspect your tulips and see how these bulbs look like, because if you find anything like this goes straight onto the compost heap. If you find anything that has mold on it, that should definitely not be stored. So now is a good time to really inspect how your tulip bulbs are looking. I've got all of my tulips here, and if you are doing a project like this, it is always a good idea to do it after you had at least 3-4 days of no rain. Sun is out, so everything is nice and dry, because you don't want to store anything that is wet and soggy, but they are not. They look really nice, and I just had a couple of them that were literally mushy, and this is really what you don't want to store. You want to make sure that these look nice and firm, and that they have this really nice shape and a lot of like side buds appearing appearing, and they look really wonderful and just perfect for storing. I'm not sure if I mentioned before, if you try to lift them in your border, try to make it as gentle as possible, not to disturb them, also not to disturb too much of the root system that these have. So really come in with your garden fork, loften up the entire soil, and then just really loften them up from underneath and try to take them out as gentle as possible. For the actual storing process, you need to have a crate. I have these really wonderful wooden boxes here. Remember back in the time when like that sounds like as if it was like 1890. Remember like 3 months ago when I took some really nice perennials from that nursery that I showed you from Germany back to Poland with me. I carried them in these nice boxes. I kept them and I'm like, I'm so happy that I did, because this is ideal for storing. Because if you store tulips, you want to make sure that there's always a good air circulation going on. You want to make sure that they are not somewhere kind of like completely boxed in. You don't want to put any kind of lid on top of it. You really want to make sure that air can circulate through. What I do then is, and I'm going to give you a closer look in a second, I come in just with paper towel and just line it underneath here. And the reason for this is quite simple. Yes, it kind of blocks the air circulation now, and I'll leave it in here now just for the first 3-4 weeks probably. But if there is any moisture left in these tulip bulbs, the paper towel is quite good, because then this is going to soak up all of that moisture, and I know that this is a good thing, because this is really what you want to have. So what I do now is I put them in here into this crate, and just with the pointy side up exactly on how they grew in the ground. And then I just put them next to each other. I make sure that they don't touch, because this is really what you don't want to have. Even though I inspected these and they are looking really nice and firm and they have a good root system, there could be still one that is not healthy and not a happy camper. And if they're all touching, then if one has mold, this is going to spread throughout the entire crate. And this is really, that would be so sad. That's not what you want to have. So make sure that you really distribute them quite nice. Some of them already kind of like broke loose from the mother bulb. So this is literally like a tiny young bulb, but this is eventually going to produce a flower next year. So still worth storing all of these. So I'm just going to give you a closer look at how this looks. I put all of my tulips now into the crate, and this is exactly how it is supposed to look like. So you have all of them kind of spaced out nice and evenly. They're not touching each other. They can dry off now. And when it comes to the storing, you want to put this somewhere where it is consistent, nice and cool and dark. So a basement would be ideal. I don't have a basement here in the house, so I'm going to put it just in a storage room for now, and then see what I'm going to do. What you should do though is you should definitely inspect these here. Like every 3 to 4 weeks, you should just quickly go inside and see how they look. And if you find any bulb that where you go like, well, I don't know, maybe they have sign of rot, just take it out, because there's always a risk that this is going to affect any of the other bulbs that you're storing. I stored all of my tulips indoors now, and this is a quite safe and sound method on how you can store your tulips in the summertime, up until the point when you plant them out in the landscape or in your pots again. Here I do it always in November, just because I plant big drifts of tulips and I just do it all in one big go. I have like 2-3 days of just buffoonery of only planting tulips. But I want to wait up until the perennials in the border stop flowering, because if I trample on anything, you know, it's not so sad if I do it like earlier on in the year. But that is it for today's video. Hope it was interesting for you. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm ready. I've prepared my container, so the next video is in the making. It's on its way. I hope you are excited about that. I'm not going to tell you though where those containers are going to go. So I would really love to welcome you in my garden next time around. Have a good one, guys. Bye.